Hey everyone, this is Lorcana. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about Amber Steel Songs. Now, Amber Steel Songs is a deck that is very exciting because it wasn't a deck that we all had just kind of come to notice as soon as the set 11 of Disney Lorcana's Winter Spell was released. It was a deck that kind of came later in the game, so that was pretty exciting. This deck list was made popular by Habibi, level 9001, or Diego, as well as Sky, who all piloted it quite successfully. Habibi and Diego taking it to DLC Ghent, while Sky took it home at the CCS Houston 25K, I believe. So all of them just, putting this deck list on the map, showcasing that anyone can be a singer by playing Amber Steel Songs. I personally love this deck. I think it reminds me a lot of the pre-rotation Amber Steel Songs. Of course, we're not using a whole new world any opportunity we can, as that's still rotated out, but we are utilizing some exciting songs like He Hurled His Thunderbolt and Akud at Amudi. I don't know if I said that right. I hope I did. As well as Strength of Raging Fire, which we all know and love. To continue to apply a lot of board pressure or to continue to remove characters from our opponent's side of the board. So let's just get started. This is our Amber Steel Songs guide. So the first deck list I wanted to talk about was Sky's deck that took him to victory in the 25K. He called it Hail to the Chief because he was playing Chief Powhatan, which is a very important card for this deck list. Well, not super important, but a very exciting one. It's a 5/5 bodyguard, quests for 1, 4 cost inkable, has the ability this character can't challenge. So that's obviously not the greatest ability to have because sometimes you do need to challenge. However, what's cool about Chief Powhatan is that not only is he this overstated bodyguard that can help protect your characters, but he can also sing any of our songs in this deck list. So that's pretty epic. What makes this deck list so different than from last set, for example? You might be wondering, like, well, why was nobody playing this last set? Like, what changed? Well, what really changed was not only the addition of Chief Powhatan, but we also have this new Angel Siren Singer. She's a 2-cost inkable 2/2 who quests for 1 and has the ability Underdog, which means if you're on the draw or if you're going second, you can play her as a 1-cost on your first turn. And she has the Singer 3 ability, which we've seen in characters like Cinderella Ballroom Sensation. So we know that is a very important ability to help us remove the early characters off our opponent's board so that we can set up our board and just kind of win the game. What's cool about Angel, though, is that because she's a Singer 3, not only can she sing Strength of a Raging Fire like we're used to doing with Cinderella back in post-rotation or in Infinity, but she can also sing the new Akud at Amudi song. Akud at Amudi is a 3-cost uninkable song that has the ability, you pay 2 less for the next character you play this turn, and you get to draw a card. So that's pretty exciting because not only is it kind of a draw engine, not really, but it does let you draw a card, so it replaces itself. But it allows us to play out our characters for a cheaper cost so we can accelerate them earlier. For example, you could go Angel Siren Singer into Sing Akuda Moody, draw a card, and then play any of your 4-cost characters, whether that's Ariel, I see here, Chief, or Angel, for essentially the cost of 2, right? So it can really help you catch up, especially in those games when you're on the draw, right? Which we've historically known to be what's the word I'm looking for? Like a downside to playing Lorcana. Being on the draw is not as exciting as being on the player going first. We also have the addition of the other Angel, Experiment 624. Sorry, I just had to check what that said. I completely forgot her tag. Angel Experiment 624 is a 3/3 4-cost inkable quest for 1, but has 2 abilities. The first one being she gets resist +2 if you have no cards in your hand, so that's really exciting. And the second one being good aim. Once during your turn, you may choose and discard a card to deal 2 damage to a chosen character. Now you might be like, 2 damage, like that's not the greatest, but in a world where there's a lot of dogs, 2 damage is very important, especially because a lot of their characters, like Grandmother Willow, like Lilo, for example, like Bobby Zimmerowski, all have 2 willpower, so Angel can really help us remove those characters from the board. What's also exciting about Angel is, at least for me, she also really helps manipulate the Strength of a Raging Fire and the Thunderbolt math so that I'm able to remove characters off the board a little bit easier with those songs. So let me just explain. I'm thinking back to a game I played recently where I was against Amber Ruby, and I remember my opponent, I had 3 cards on board, or 2 cards on board, and I remember, and one of them was the Troubadour, and I remember my opponent had played the Maui Shark, and because I was able to play out the Angel the next turn, and I was able to sing with the Troubadour, the Strength of a Raging Fire, I was able to apply 3 damage to the Maui Shark, and then I used Angel's ability to discard the final card in my hand to deal the extra 2 damage to the Maui Shark. So I like Angel as someone who can help me manipulate damage or just remove something off the board with the 2 damage she has or provides. Some other cards I see here, we also have started seeing Delamoon's Lullaby pop up. I'm not super into Delamoon's Lullaby in this build, but of course Sky was using it as just another way to draw cards, especially when you pair it alongside the Ariel, the 3/4 Ariel quests for 2. She's a 4-cost inkable, boost 1, and has the ability once during your turn, if she is boosted, then you get to draw an additional, or you get to draw a card if you sing a song or play a song. So that's pretty exciting. So this was Sky's list. Again, it took him to first place as it's pretty well positioned into the dogs meta. It does well into things like Amethyst Steel. I've never had problems with it into any of the Ruby deck lists I've been playing, but most decks I play don't struggle with Ruby right now. I've been struggling with Blurple with this list, but I know some people say it's a pretty good list into Blurple as well. So I'm curious to learn more about the deck to help me with the Blurple matchup. Also, someone who I forgot to mention, who we see here in the level 9001 / Habibi build, is the Stitch Careful Snowboarder or Carefree Snowboarder. Essentially, he's just another draw engine, as he's a 4/5, quest for 2, and has the ability, whenever this character quests, if you have 2 or more characters in play, you may draw a card. So that's pretty exciting, especially in a deck list where we are depleting our hand so much because we're singing so many songs, because we're utilizing the Angel ability to discard our hand to deal the 2 damage. We really need answers or ways to continue replenishing our hand. One thing I love about Habibi's build and Diego's build, though, is that it really capitalizes on the Rhino shift target and the Rhino shift. Essentially because if you go, for example, turn 1 Rhino and shift him turn 2, well, now all of a sudden you can start singing songs like He Hurled His Thunderbolt, whether you're on the play or on the draw, as early as your turn 2. So that's really exciting, and I really like that to help me catch up. I also like how Rhino can sing songs like Akud et Amudi, so that way I don't really lose a lot of tempo from shifting. You know, I could go shift Rhino for my turn 2, sing Akud, draw the card, and then play out the Grandma Willow as well. That way now I have a shifted Rhino and a Grandmother Willow, and now for my next turn, if they can't remove the Willow, I can start playing my 4-cost characters, whether that's Angel, Chief, another Rhino, for example, things like that. So I really like those playing lines as well. I think a lot of this deck list is just really connecting the play lines and seeing the different types of things you can do. And we'll go over into the play lines as well, as we do with most of our meta guides, or all of our meta guides. But yeah, so this is level 9001's build, which I really like as well. I've started playing this one a bit more. I think the Goliath is cool too, especially when we can cheat him out, honestly, as early as turn 3, using cards like Willow and Akud to make him cost 3 less, essentially. So that's pretty exciting. But we'll go over all that in the playlines. We also forgot to mention, though, Nani Stage Manager. She's one of our new cards as well. She's a 3/3 3 cost inkable, quest for 1, has the ability when you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a character card with cost 2 or less, put it into your hand, and the rest go on the bottom. Great for finding our docks. Kind of sad when you see a nice answer in those 4 cards you draw. Like, for example, I remember I was playing a game against I was playing a game against Emerald Ruby, because one of my friends at my LGS is playing that, and I remember I drew like into one of my Thunderbolts with her, and of course I couldn't put that in my hand, but I was like, oh, this would be really beneficial with right now, but unfortunately went to the bottom of my deck. So keep that in mind when you are playing with Nani. Like, she is great, but she also can be not great sometimes. And then finally, Ben Fishman, who's actually a friend of my Twitter, took it home at the recent PPG Pittsburgh. Congrats, Ben. 160 players with Amber Steel. What is cool about this deck list, though, is that it takes level 9001 and Habibi's build, and it takes Sky's build, and it changes, you know, what was good and what was bad about those builds. Like, for example, taking out the Delamoons. Like, I don't think we really need Delamoon. And putting it all together and making one, I think, exceptional build. Like, this is where I'm at when it comes to, like, my build. Like, I saw Ben's build, I saw how well he played on the stream, and I was like, I need to try this. So I'm also using this build as well. I really like how it capitalizes on both Aerial and Goliath. I think there's a place for both of them. I love Stitch, carefree snowboarder, but he's just so slow sometimes. I really need someone who's going to draw me cards as soon as they impact the board, essentially, or around that time. Whereas Stitch, like, he kind of reminds me a lot of Yzma, where you climb to the board and then your opponent is like, either I have the answer for this and you just did nothing, or I don't have the answer and you're gonna get away with it. But then you have to quest with him, right? And then your opponent's just gonna get rid of him next turn. So something that can stay stable, like Goliath or Aerial, and something that can help you draw cards as soon as they're played, like the two of them, is really nice to have in this list. I also like how he's using 4 Lilos. I think Lilo is just so strong, especially when you pair her up with the Angel, right? You can use the Angel to discard the Lilo so that you can bring her back later, so you can go wide. Also, bringing Lilo back later never hurt a Strength of Raging Fire, because she's just an extra body you have on the board. And also using the Pluto Steel Champion as well. Just one of, which I think is fair, just because we are in a world where there are Snow Forts, where there are Chromacons. I mean, Ink Runner, we have no evasives, but I'm trying to think of the other items. There are Amethyst Chromacons and Emerald Chromacons and all of sorts of those things. So Pluto Steel Champion just helps us remove those, as well as having the cool ability that if you banish a character with one of your Steel characters, it can't be Pluto, it has to be like Doc, Angel, Rhino, or Goliath, or Troubadour, for example. You get to gain 2 lures, which is pretty exceptional. I've seen people use Benjas and be successful, but I personally like the Pluto as well. I think Pluto is just a lot bigger and a lot better. When it comes to the win rate matrix, it's not very exciting because it does say we're at like a 43% win rate across what is this? 1,983 matches, which is like really bad. But like, I don't know, as I've been playing this list, I haven't found it to be that unsuccessful, so I'm a little confused, and I might have to message, I can't say the name, but I might have to message, like, the win rate matrix guy and see, like, what he has to say about that, because, like, that data is very interesting to me, especially because, like, as I continue to see this deck pilot against other decks, like Amethyst Steel, for example, and as I continue to pilot it into those types of decks, I do very well. And here it says that the matchup into Amber Steel is a 37% win rate across 437 matches. So I don't know where the data is coming from for this one. For the other decks, like for example, for Dogs, for Blurple, for like Amethyst Steel, I understand like the data, and I'm like, okay, like I've seen those matches, or I've experienced those decks. I understand, what it's good into, what it's bad into, and I agree with the positionings. But I don't know, Amber Steel, it's a little odd why it's so low. But anyways, in my opinion, I've done very well into the Dogs with this deck. I've done very well into Amethyst Steel with this deck, and I've done very well into Ruby with this deck. Ruby just continues to want to, banish my characters off the board, which is nice when we have Lilos and stuff because we can just bring them back. And Ruby kind of struggles into cards like Chief Powhatan just because they are so big. So, like, I've never struggled into Ruby with this deck list, but maybe other people might. The dogs, I think it's mostly 50-50, but like if you pilot it well, you can definitely find yourself at like a 55-60% win rate on the play, especially because cards like Angel just continue removing characters off their board, and we are using the Pluto to help remove their Chromacon, so it's not like we don't have answers to the things they want to do or the things they do. Just try not to let them get to the Under the Sea, because like, for example, if I go back, like a lot of our characters, right, are such low strength that they can be, you know, under the seat, especially when you know, the dogs player pairs, you know, Delamoon's Lullaby or the Rhino with the Under the Sea. Like, they just board wipe us essentially. So like, keep that in mind. Of course, we do have cards like Chief Powhatan that can really help because they won't be removed, but Chief just can't challenge, right? So that's a bit of a struggle there. But I mean, all decks are really struggling with that right now. But I do like having, for example, Angel. I like having my songs, right? I just keep removing their characters, and I don't find that to be an issue when I'm playing against like dogs builds. And then Amethyst Steel, like the fact that we have cards like Troubadour, for example, that can sing can sing songs like Zeus as early as turn or He Hurled His Thunderbolt. Sorry, I keep saying Zeus. He Hurled His Thunderbolt as early as turn 3. Like, that's really strong because we can use that to remove their genies, the Researcher one, or the Evasive Genie. We can use that to remove their Cheshire Cats, for example. We can use the Thunderbolt to remove their Iagos. What else? Yzmas, their Dumbos, like any character. Like, I don't think that any card in Amethyst Steel up until the 5-cost Elsa can survive a Thunderbolt, so keep that in mind. And that's why I really like this matchup, and I continue seeing it be successful on stream and in my own playtesting. So I'm not sure why it says 37% here, you guys, but don't listen to it. Personally, if I had to choose one matchup that I hate, I would say Blurple. And the reason that is like, yes, we have a very strong early game into Blurple where we can Zeus their genies, we can Zeus their Iagos or whatever, right? Or we can, you know, apply a lot of board pressure early with the Lilos or with the Willows to spam out characters on our board. However, they do really have a lot of answers to the things we do that if you don't get the perfect hand, essentially, like, you just really falter really quickly. And let me explain that. Like, for example, Chief Powhatan is such an easy let it go target for them, or an easy into the unknown target for them. Everything falters to Demona in our deck, basically. What else have I been struggling with? Angel does basically nothing into their deck. As we know, like, we know Angel is not that good into Blurple. So, I don't know. I don't like the Blurple matchup. Sky says it's a good matchup into Blurple. I don't see it, but I'm not the professional. I'm just a player. In terms of our core, of course, Angel Siren Singer is like, you want 4 of her. She's just, you're on the draw. You play her turn 1. Even if you have to play her turn 2 on the play, like, she's not bad. She's a singer 3, right? So she'll sing your Akuds and she'll sing your Strengths, which is great. Next up, Grandma Willow. She's nice because she can help us apply more characters on the board. So that way, let's say we go Angel into Willow into maybe like a Lilo and a Troubadour. Now all of a sudden, your turn 3, you've applied 4 characters on the board. You sing the Strength of a Raging Fire with Angel, and now all of a sudden, you've been able to take out your opponent's, maybe their Cheshire Cat, maybe their Genie, for example, right? It's a good combo to go like Angel into Grandma Willow, actually. Lilo Escape Artist is great. We have many options to discard the Lilo through the Angel. You could also discard her through Doc, but typically you're discarding her through Angel, so that way you can use the good aim ability to apply 2 damage to an opposing character, but also so that you can bring her back later when you need her. So I really like Lilo. In that sense, we also have the Troubadour. He's a singer 4, and that's really important in this list because we're so focused on songs, right? We want to be singing songs like He Hurled His Thunderbolt as early as turn 3 so that we can continue to get good value out of the song, and so that we can continue to make it so our opponent really struggles to keep characters on their board and we can start to go wide. So that way, I like going Zeus or Thunderbolt early game. If you know, you know. Zeus was the pre-rotation Thunderbolt. I like going Thunderbolt early game, and then late game when I've built up my board, then I start playing more Strength of Raging Fire since I have more characters on the board, so it does more damage. Doc is a great one as well. He helps us like get more cards in our hand. We're a songs deck. We're gonna have low cards in our hand. Doc is great to help us apply or to help us build up our hand again. If you have 2 Docs in your hand, it does not hurt also to use Angel's ability to just toss one at your opponent and then go from there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of great combos in this deck that can make it so your Doc isn't as disgusting, especially when you have 2 of them in your hand and you're like, come on, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's the worst thing ever when you have 2 Docs in hand. Nani, Stage Manager, is great, but as I said earlier, sometimes she'll find you one of the cards you actually want that's not a 2 cost or less character, and you're like, well, see you at the bottom of the deck, which kind of sucks, but other than that, finding Docs off of Nani is like the best thing you can do, or just finding any sort of answer you might need, whether that's the Troubadour to have a singer for, or maybe it's the Lilo Escape Artist to help with your Angel that you might want to play the next turn. Chief Powhatan, I really like this card. A lot of people I've played against just struggle to remove this card. Like, if you're not playing Blurple, for example, you have not a lot of answers to this card because he's so hard to remove, being a 5 strength, 5 willpower. So it's really nice because he's a 2-for-1 trade, right? Like, your opponent really has to put like 2 things into this card to get rid of him, and then you're just like, okay, and then maybe you just play another one next turn, and then your opponent like shrugs or shakes their head, and they're like, come on. Angel, we've talked about Angel, she's great. And then finally Stitch as well, just being another card draw engine who can sing, which is nice. Typically you want to quest with him though and continue filling up your hand. The core songs, Akud, this song is like such a good song. It's literally one of the reasons why this deck is so successful right now, just because like you can use this song to just make things so much cheaper, right? You pay 2 less for the next character you play this turn. That on its own is like 10 out of 10. Sometimes I'll top deck this song and I'll just use it to draw a card too, right? It's like, it reminds me a lot of Sail the Azurite Sea, in the sense that like as a late game top deck, you're not upset about it because like it's still gonna help you filter through your deck a little bit more. So I really like it. Strength of Raging Fire, not much needed to be said about here. It's our inkable song. It's great late game, especially when you've applied a lot of characters on the board. Right now, it can all of a sudden start doing a lot of damage so that your opponent just really struggles to put anything on the board, whether that's Demona, whether that's the Maui Shark, for example, things like that. And then finally, He Hurled His Thunderbolt, a great song for the early game. Also can be good in the late game as well, but I think in the early game, this song just beats up anything that your opponent tries to play, whether that's Daisy Duck, Cheshire Cat, Genie. And so this song just like, it's just you just want this song. And when we talk about the Mulligan, which we'll do in a bit, like I'll talk about why I typically try and keep at least one of the Zeuses or the Thunderbolts in my opening hand. When it comes to the tech cards, you could always play Mulan, Disguised Soldier. She just helps you filter through your deck. It says here, when you play this character, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. So in a deck where we have Lilo, like to discard and then bring her back later, this Mulan is pretty strong. But I'm personally more in favor of the Angel plus Rhino turn 1 route, just because they're both singers, whereas this Mulan, she helps us filter, which is great because we do have 16 uninkables typically in this deck. So keep that in mind. So it is nice to have a card that can help us unbrick when we feel bricked. But Rhino, for example, the high roll is just so incredible. Like you play Rhino turn 1, you shift Rhino turn 2. Now all of a sudden you can sing your Thunderbolts. Now you could sing your Akud and play an additional 2-cost character and draw an extra card that turn. Or even just the Rhino on its own, a 4/3 with resist 2 who quest for 2 is not a bad card, especially in the mirror match. Like even a Thunderbolt can't get rid of that. So a very, very strong song card. I remember there was one game I played where I went Rhino turn 2. I didn't sing yet. I quested with him. My opponent, it was the mirror match. My opponent struggled to remove him. I then used the Akud that was in my hand. I sang it with the Rhino. I played out Chief Powhatan. Just kept playing these big characters on the board that I knew my opponent would struggle to deal with. And then I started to, sing songs like Thunderbolt, like Strength, things like that, starting to remove characters from their board, which was pretty helpful. Mowgli, I've seen players play Mowgli. I don't think that everyone plays Mowgli, and that's okay. Mowgli, of course, can just help us get hand information and remove non-character cards from our opponent's hand, which is nice, but not really necessary in this deck because, I mean, kind of necessary because we want the hand information, but we also just want to sing and just continue removing characters from our opponent's board. So I don't really care for the Mowgli, but in a world where there are Chromacons, he is nice. However, in a world where there are Chromacons, we also have cards like Benja and Pluto that can help us remove those items. So I do like having some item tech in this deck list, especially because in my meta we're very big on Snow Fort right now. I don't know why. I love the card. I think the math changes so much with the card, but I just said I need some kind of item tech because I can't handle the additional like resist that they get, especially with this kind of deck where I'm trying to deal damage and they're all of a sudden resisting it. Goliath is really exciting. The ability to draw 2 cards just helps us continue to apply pressure, whether that's using the angels so we can continue to use one of those cards and throw them at our opponent, or, playing those cards to our board and just continue going wide or continue finding our songs. Goliath really helps with all of that. Delamoon's Lullaby. Didn't love this song when I was playtesting it, but it's really nice, especially when you pair it with the Aerial Ethereal voice. Right now, essentially, Delamoon's Lullaby acts kind of like a Friends on the Other Side, where you get to draw 2. It's a cheaper Friends on the Other Side because it only costs 2. But with Aerial, you get to draw 2 cards, and then chosen opponent gets -2 strength, or opposing character gets -2 strength. So great into Vanish characters. Ooh, I just hit my face with my mic. It's great for Vanish characters. Great if you want a quest, right? So now all of a sudden your opponent's characters are a lot weaker in terms of strength, or one of their characters. So I like it for those reasons. And then also Ursula, if you're like, well, I can't find, I struggle to find Troubadour. Troubadour is, great, of course, for singing our Thunderbolts and things like that. Then you can always put in some Vanessa's as well, as she's basically the same thing, except she doesn't have the resist. So yeah, that's the tech, I would say. When it comes to our general mulligan, on the play, I do like to find my Rhino shift line. I've been working hard on finding that. Of course, if you're not always going to find the Rhino shift line, so sometimes you might have to go a 1-drop into a true drop, whether that's Troubadour or Grandma Willow, for example. I think when it comes to my mulligan, the ideas I always have in my mind include finding a singer, some kind of person who's going to sing my songs and remove characters from my opponent's board, and some kind of draw engine. And we'll go into the draw engines right after this. I'm going to focus on my singers first because that's in my mind right now, and then we'll go into the draw engines of the deck. So on the play, like I said, Rhino is the shift target. It can be a great singer for He Hurled a Thunderbolt and Akud. Whether you want to go 1-drop Rhino, 2-drop, or shift 2 Rhino, plus sing Akud, Grandma Willow, or, 1-drop Rhino, shift Rhino, quest, or sing He Hurled his Thunderbolt, and then the next turn you would sing Akud and play out your 4 or 5-cost characters. That's always exciting. The Troubadour is great too. You could always go 1-drop into the Troubadour, sing He Hurled his Thunderbolt on turn 3. You typically will find me doing that a lot into Amethyst Steel, just because Amethyst Steel really struggles against Thunderbolt. So I like that. And also because, it just gets rid of their Strength of Raging Fire singers, so that's exciting. And then on the draw, Angel into Akud is, one of the most broken on the draw lines you could ever play, because you could go, Angel, sing Akud, play out the Chief Powhatan, protect your Angel so you can have her later, or you could go Angel, sing Akud, bring out the other Angel, this Experiment 624, and, get rid of your opponent's Willow, get rid of your opponent's Bobby, something like that way. Or you could go Angel, Akud into Aerial Ethereal Voice, and that way you can start drawing songs. you can start drawing songs a little earlier than expected, which is very exciting. Also, in terms of the draw engine, like I said, try and keep some kind of draw engine in the opening mulligan as your hand size depletes fast. I think that's just very important for this deck list because, like I said, we are using so many cards in our hands to continue applying damage to the board. So you're going to need a way to refill that hand size. So it could be your Ariel, it could be your Doc, it could be your Goliath, or it could be your Stitch. Pick one. Basically, find a singer, find a draw engine, win the game. That's typically how I like to roll. When it comes to some exciting play lines, here's what I like to do. So we'll start with on the play because, of course, on the play and on the draw are different when we have cards like Angel with Underdog. So let's start on the play, though. Rhino, turn 1, love it. Yay. Shift Rhino, turn 2. Wow, life is great because now I can sing He Hurled This Thunderbolt or I can sing a Cood. And if I do want to sing a Cood, I can bring out an additional 2-cost character, right? So I'm still applying more characters to the board even though I shifted that turn. Or I can use He Hurled His Thunderbolt to remove anything that I want gone, whether that's my opponent's Willow or whether that's my opponent's Daisy Duck. Those are two big things that I've liked getting rid of. However, anything you can think of that you're like, I need this gone, Rhino is great at singing He Hurled and then getting rid of it. Also, because it's so early in the game, there are really no answers to the Rhino, so typically he's going to live even though he's exerted the next turn, and then you can sing another song the next turn, or you can, you know, fight back the board some way else, or you could just quest for 2, because that's always a nice thing to do as well. If you are playing the Mulan, it doesn't hurt to go like 1-cost Mulan or 1-cost Rhino into something like Grandma Willow, and then your turn 3, because you do have Willow out on board, you can start playing any of your 4-cost characters. We only have Nani as a 3-cost character, so keep that in mind because we want to follow the curve, right? And we don't want to miss the curve. We don't want to like start playing like 2-cost characters on turn 3 because that's not always, you know, the most exciting thing to do. But if we can bring out the Willow on turn 2, then all of a sudden we can bring out any of our 4-cost characters, whether that's Powhatan, Angel, Ariel, or even the Rhino as well, as early as turn 3. So we can start applying pressure that way as they can all sing any of our songs. And then, of course, going into Stitch Carefree Snowboarder after that is great because if they are singing songs, and chances are they probably will be because we do have a lot of songs in the deck, you're going to need to refill your hand, right? Especially if you have something like Angel too, where you're going to start using the cards in your hand to deal damage to your opponent's board. Carefree Snowboarder is just a great way to help us get cards back into our hand. Also going something like this was a wild play for me. I'm going to talk about it. If you could do it with the Rhino shift line as well, but I find it's just easier with Troubadour since you're not as, like, it's harder to get the shift line than it is to just get a Troubadour. Going Troubadour into Willow, using Troubadour to sing a Cood, you can play Goliath as early as turn 4 on the play. You can play it as early as turn 3 on the draw, and we'll get to that in a second. But it's kind of insane because, like, you typically will only have like 2 cards left in your hand anyways, so Goliath is really strong there. And then sometimes, especially into the purple decks, your opponents will probably have more than 2 cards in their hand, so they have to start discarding cards when you get it out that early. So personally, I really like this play. I think it's very fun when you do get to high roll it, but essentially you get to do it because the Grandmother Willow makes the Goliath come out for 1 cost cheaper, and the Akud makes it come out for 2 costs cheaper. So that's pretty exciting, right? So now all of a sudden with 3 ink, you can play out Goliath, which is so epic. If you're on the draw, for example, let me just go to on the draw side. You can go Angel into Willow, sing a Cood with Angel, bring out Goliath as early as turn 3. This is such an insane line because, like, your opponent will always have more than 2 cards in their hand. So, like, all of a sudden you're just like, yep. I mean, be careful because you don't want to discard things that you need. If you discard Lilo, that's okay. I don't know. It's just so funny when, like, it's turn 3 and I have a Goliath on board. I'm like, whoa, this was wild. Some other exciting plays as well. You could do Rhino into Troubadour, like sing, remove something from your opponent's board. play the Nani, find something for your hand, and then play your 4-cost character, right? This is just your 1, 2, 4. You're not cheating anything out. You're not, you know, doing anything crazy with the Akud. You're just kind of following your curve normally, which doesn't always happen with this deck, which is cool, but sometimes you're going to have to. And Troubadour on turn 2 is a good play because you get to do He Hurled His Thunderbolt, and the Nani is exciting because she'll help you find a 2-drop, and then you could always use that 2-drop to, if it's like Lilo, for example, alongside the Angel, so you can just deal 2 damage to your opponent with the Angel, or maybe you might play Ariel, for example, and then have more songs to sing with the Troubadour. So things like that. I don't know. I just like I like that curve as well. Even if you don't get your ramp, is what I'm trying to say, you still have a good play line with the curve. Mulan, for example, or 1-drop into Willow, into, you know, Nani, plus an additional 1-drop is pretty cool. Don't love that play line in this list, but in the dogs, it's pretty important. But I just have it here just in case you're curious. And then the last one that's pretty exciting is like Grandma Willow into a 2-drop, into another 2-drop, into a 4-drop the next turn. Pretty exciting as well. Or 5-drop the next turn as well. I mean, Chief Powhatan, I think I put Chief Powhatan here just to show. I'm kind of covering up. But I think I put Chief Powhatan here just to show that, like, if you are going to go wide like this, it's nice to put such a big character in front of your board, so that way you're not, like, they're not going to be able to remove it as easily. So you might find me doing something like that into, for example, like Amber Sapphire, the control build, just because I know they're going to want a Raging Storm, and Lilo is like the best into a Raging Storm because she just comes back right after. So yay to that. And then, like I said, on the draw, we talked about this first one, but of course, going Angel, Sing Akud, you can play out any of your 4-cost characters as early as turn 2, whether that's Chief, whether that's Angel, Ariel. I keep forgetting to put the Rhino here, but you get the point. And then using one of those characters to sing He Hurled His Thunderbolt a turn later is great, because now all of a sudden you can kill off your opponent's Cheshire Cat, their Genie, their Lexington, for example. Or if you do that a little bit later, you can sing it to get rid of their other Genie, their 4-cost Genie, Iago, or their Dumbo. What's exciting, though, is, you know, against the against Amethyst Steel, for example, you're typically using He Hurled His Thunderbolt on any of these 3. And then into Blurple, you're typically using He Hurled His Thunderbolt onto any of these 3. Even He Hurled His Thunderbolt does great into Isis Vanderchill, so keep that in mind. And then, of course, we also could have... or what was I trying to say? Oh yeah, Angel into Troubadour, using the Troubadour to sing as well, right? You don't even need Angel, you just need the Troubadour, and you can sing that way. Troubadour or Vanessa, either one of those 2 works. When it comes to some of the exciting Wombo combos, here are some Wombo combos that I have in mind. Last time someone DM'd me just saying that they were feeling pretty overwhelmed with all the combos I was giving, so I kept it a little bit more chill today, but you'll probably heard in this video me as I've been talking some of the different play lines and things like that, so you can consider those combos. But here are 4 really exciting combos that for beginner players at least you might be a little bit more keen to try, starting with, of course, the Angel and Mulan discard Lilo combo. I said here the best discard target for Mulan and Angel is, of course, Lilo. When we discard Lilo, we can play her from the discard later in the game to continue applying board pressure. The best times to bring her back include when we need an extra body for Strength of a Raging Fire. I remember there was one game where I was top decking and I top decked a Strength, but it wasn't enough, and I did have the Lilo in my discard, so the next turn after that I brought the Lilo back just so that I knew I would have a character to use the Strength and remove the opponent's character from the board. It's a slow line, but if you do need the extra character, like for Strength of Raging Fire, Lilo is there. And when we know we can safely quest for the board, right? Like if Chief Powhatan's in the way, we've got him established, or, you know, we've just set up this wide board and we know we're going to do a board-wide quest, we can always bring the Lilos back, so that way our opponent has to deal with additional cards. And especially, again, because our hand size gets so low, it's so nice that we have the opportunity to bring Lilo back, because she can help, she can just be that card we play that turn, right? And then we can continue to build up our hand with the cards we're drawing for turn. The best search target for Nani is, of course, Doc. We can use Nani to help us find Doc and continue to refill our hand size. This is essential since a lot of our time, our hand is completely depleted with the songs we are playing or discarding with Angel, right? We're discarding a lot of songs, we're singing a lot of songs, or we're discarding a lot of cards in our hand, we're singing a lot of songs. So Doc is a really, really good find with Nani, or just on his own. Angel into a Cood is one of the most strongest things we can do on the draw. We can use this to play any of our 4-drops as early as turn 2 to apply big bodies on the board very early into the game, whether that's Ariel, Angel, Chief, or Rhino. I did put him here. And then, of course, Chief is such an oversided character, but he does have the downside of not being able to challenge. However, he can still sing, right? So you can sing Heralded Thunderbolt to deal damage with Chief, you can sing Strength to deal damage with Chief, or you can just watch your opponent try and run into him and, like, remove their characters that way. Like, it's just, he's a good card. He's a very good card. I said, although Chief Powhatan is an oversetted bodyguard that we can play as early as turn 2 on the draw, right, going the Akud route with Angel, or turn 3 with the downside of being unable to challenge, he can still sing our songs we have in our deck while protecting our board. So he's pretty great in that sense. When I went to locals, I took some pictures. I didn't do them any from Saturday, but I went last Thursday and I took some pictures. But essentially, right, I love protecting my board with Chief, especially into the Amethyst matchups. This was against Amethyst Emerald, where they don't really have a lot of answers to kind of remove him. So all of a sudden, like, Chief is just such a big character. Of course, my opponent inking the Iago here because we have so many songs, and this was when I was on Della's Moon Lullaby. We have so many songs so that we can just continue banishing our opponent's characters. Bringing the Lilos back from the discards when their Chief is established is great. We can also use our Ariel booster to draw cards, right? That's probably what happened here with Della Moon. Angel, of course, can be used to discard cards, so we can continue throwing things at our opponents to deal more damage to them, which is pretty exciting. And yeah, that's just one image. There's another one I wanted to go over. How do I get out of here? There we go. Perfect. Let's zoom in here. Okay. Next up, this was against when my opponent established a Snow Fort. And you know Wildcard. I believe this was against Wildcard. He's an amazing, amazing Amethyst Emerald player. Just look at the flavor. Look at the board. Like, it is very easy, not very easy, but it's very nice to go wide with this deck, especially when you have the Chief Powhatan established, because you can just continue singing songs to remove characters from your opponent's board, right? Like into Blurple, for example, into Amethyst Emerald, for example. They're typically applying one character to the board each turn. So if you have an answer for those characters, like Strength of a Raging Fire, how much damage would Strength do here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which could do 9 damage. Like, come on. Come on. It's such a good deck. You gotta try it. That's why I'm here. You gotta try this deck. It's so good. I wish I had the brain capacity to be able to pilot and build something like this on my own, but I just use the big names. Some additional learning opportunities. If you watch DLC Ghent Day 1, the final stream of that day is Amber Steel into Amethyst Steel, where the Amber Steel player, I forget the name, but he wins on both the play and the draw. So I think it's a great learning opportunity there for players who want to know a little bit more about how to win on the draw with this deck specifically. So definitely check out Ghent DLC Day 1. Also, Ghent DLC Day 2 has a lot of Diego plays, who is also on the same deck list, or a similar deck list. So definitely check that one out. I believe it's Ghent DLC Day 1 that has it. There's definitely an Amber Steel somewhere in there. And Sky's finals against Mitchell, for example, is another great showcase between Amber Steel and Amethyst Steel at the CCS Houston 25K. So definitely check that one out as Sky, of course, wins. Jack versus Matthew is a very strong one as well, which was at the recent PPG Pittsburgh, which was a 10K. Of course, Jack wasn't the winner of the event, but Jack is still a very good, piloted it very well, so I thought that was a good one to showcase. And then, of course, San Syed's Versus series has a lot of great gameplay videos that you can go check out. He does an Amber Steel versus dogs, which I think is really important since like a lot of people are on dogs. So definitely go check out those. What just happened? Oh, I linked them so I could remember to put them in my bio later. LOL. And yeah, that is the end of this video. If you loved it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I know that these guides are a little bit longer, but I hope that I'm able to establish a lot of really insightful information for the viewers, so that way you can take at least one new thing from this video. I would hate it if someone watched it and was like, well, I learned nothing from that. Like, hopefully you learn at least one new thing from the video. Of course, they are piloted more towards beginners. However, if you are more intermediate or advanced, maybe you just wanted to hear some amazing things about the Amber Steel songs as well. If there's anything I missed, please put it in the comment section below or send me a DM and I can do that for you. If you loved the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I cannot wait to see you all again next time. Peace!